Welcome to the 100 Master Coaches series featuring master coaches from around the world. Let's journey together on this 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Jenn Lofgren is the founder of Incito, an executive leadership coaching and development firm in Calgary, Canada. A master certified coach, speaker, and facilitator, Jenn has worked with executives and entrepreneurs across Canada and worldwide, helping them grow into inspired, authentic leaders. Jenn is a dynamic leader in her own right, and has been recognized as one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network. Now on to the show.
Hello, and welcome to the 100 Master Coaches show. This is Coach Mal, and today I have a special guest, once again, from Calgary, Canada. Please welcome Jenn Lofgren. Yay! Welcome to the show, Jenn.
Thank you, Mel. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. In the pre-show, we talked a little bit about things. We talked a bit about the Olympics happening in Calgary, which was kind of a miss year that year, but it doesn't matter. We are here right now. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, there's so many different parts to me. I think the number one important thing to me is being a mom, and the most important opportunity I've ever had in my life is to be a mom to an amazing daughter who's currently in grade 7, and I'm married, and we live in inner city Calgary, and in a community that's got some real community around it. It's the kind of neighborhood where everybody has a kid, a dog, or both, because everybody walks around, and there's small businesses and people that you see regularly and get to know, and community is really important to me. And as a result of that community, I participate or give back to the community that's given so richly to me over the years, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or an arts and culture organization, or Parks Foundation, or an organization serving youth. I give back by serving on those boards of directors so that I can use some of the skills I've been blessed to develop in my life to give back to those communities. I've actually, we didn't talk pre-show about this, but I've been through 2 careers. And my first career was in information technology. So I built national, international computer networks, and people are often surprised to learn that about me. And that human resources that led me into coaching was my second career. And I left my first career and went back to school full time to retrain.
Wow. Now that's something that people will get really encouraged by, because in today's day and age, we've got to upskill ourselves or reskill ourselves, right? Not just to be more relevant, but also to move into different phases in our life and different passions, perhaps, right? So it started in IT, HR, and then coaching. So this is where we're going to jump into understanding how that transition happened. How did your coaching journey begin?
I'd actually go back to 2001.
Okay.
I was still in information technology, and I lost my job in the dot-com bust. I built large-scale computer infrastructure, international infrastructure, and there's too much of it in the world, and nobody was doing any more projects. And I worked for a large telecom company, and they did an incredible amount of downsizing, and I lost my job. And what's important about that time is I was given an outplacement coach. I didn't know such a thing existed. I would have never imagined this career until I had an opportunity to work with a coach. And that didn't lead me down this path right away. For a number of years, I worked as a consultant and worked on a number of different projects in technology. And then I ended up back in a full-time role for a few years and got to work on some fascinating projects in Dubai and Yemen and Colombia and the Gulf of Mexico and the United States. And I realized that I was struggling in my career. I was unsatisfied, and it took me a couple of years to figure out why. And it was thinking back to some of the questions that coach had asked me earlier in that career transition coaching experience. And it wasn't being a consultant. And it wasn't the organization, and it wasn't the team. They were all fascinating and interesting. And I love partnering with the business on strategy and making decisions around technology. So it's not all those things. What is it? Oh, I actually am not passionate about the core of what I do. I'm just really good at it. And I was rewarded and rewarded and rewarded for being really great at this very abstract part of technology and partnering with the business around it, but I didn't love it. And I saw the leaders around me looking at going into more senior leadership and not wanting to be like any of them that hadn't been grown and developed. And so then I wrestled with the question of, if not this, then what?
Then what? Yeah.
And I left my choice of career opportunities, being one of the few women in that area of technology at the time in my city, and a great brand, lots of opportunity at that time. It was no longer a bust. And I went back to school full time to retrain into human resources, with not a plan to go into coaching, but a plan to go into the area of leadership, culture, and teamwork through human resources. And when I finished my HR designation, I worked in that area in an organization, actually in an IT organization, because I understood the core of their business. So I could bring that business acumen and the connection of the business that other people in HR might not have, while I learned as a HR team member, becoming effective in this area. But I again found myself a little unsatisfied, because my role was going to change from maximizing something, taking something really good and making it better, to maintenance. And that's not where I wanted to be. And I wanted to keep doing this work and not move into generalist HR. And I learned that in order to keep doing that work, most of that work was done by external consultants. And I was reintroduced to the idea of coaching by another colleague. He suggested, have you thought about getting into coaching? I'm like, well, I don't want to just be a coach. I think it's an important skill, and I need that skill to be an external consultant, but I need to call myself an HR consultant and leadership coach. And so that's where I started. Is I got professional coach training and started as an HR leadership consultant and coach. But it was only 2 years later that I realized that that feedback my colleagues gave me, if I didn't need that HR consultant title anymore, and I dropped it, recognizing that I also didn't want to do the other HR consulting anymore. My passion was in creating impact in organizations through the leaders and growing and developing them. So that was the beginning of my coaching journey.
That is so beautiful. The way you say it, it's like you just followed that path, you followed the passion, and then when it just didn't fit any longer or didn't feel right, you just went on. It's like you just, okay, let's do this. And I don't want the audience to kind of think like it's just so easy, right? Moving from IT to HR to this, and then dropping. And so I'm sure there were points that were hard for you, and the transitions to let go of this and to jump onto that. So what made some of these possible?
They certainly weren't easy, and some of them were, I didn't even know what was going to be hard about them. The first one, leaving my career in information technology, I thought the hard was going to be quitting my job and becoming a student and letting go of the identity of being a successful professional leader in that space. But the real surprising hard part that I didn't anticipate is I was also a independent woman, met my husband a little bit later in my life. And the hardest part for me was becoming financially dependent on someone else for a couple of years while I retrained, because I went back to school full time. I didn't expect that. And that was hard. But what helped me through it was having a partner that called me on the silliness that was going on and the self-talk, and helping me challenge the story that I was making up around it. And that's what helped me get through that one. And then later on, to make that leap to becoming a coach, it wasn't about being a consultant. I knew how to run a business. I knew how to be a consultant from my earlier experiences. But again, the hard part was it was a recession. when I started in 2009 in Canada. It was a terrible recession. Nobody in their right mind would start a business at that point, except me. And I had that great support of a partner behind me. But what was important to work through was self-doubt and I don't have enough experience and I'm not credible enough. And there were people that were trying to help me by telling me that, you know what, you've not been in a senior executive role and you're young and people aren't going to take you seriously. But they were right, because I didn't wear my credibility in my prior role or being a former senior executive. And you couldn't see it on me visually. And I was 33 when I started, and they had a good point, but I had lots of credibility. You just couldn't see it. So what did I need to do to make it more visible? And it was great advice that I started looking for opportunities to make that credibility more visible, whether it was speaking or writing or serving on boards and helping others have interactions with me that were more leadership experiences, not just coaching and consulting experiences. It wasn't easy at first.
I hear so many themes happening there. One is there's this wonderful support that you got, right? And then there were the voices that you needed to silence. Right? And then as you stepped out, it's that whole self-acceptance of who you really are versus what people think on the perceptive level, right? So tell us a little bit more, Jenn, in your initial years, and I know you just said it was in that whole recession start when you jumped in, started your business. What were your first couple of years in business like as a coach?
Well, I remember distinctly after about 4 months of talking to a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, and having a lot of coffee meetings. I remember coming home and talking to my husband saying, okay, I now understand the word socialite, because I feel like a coffee socialite. I have lots of coffee and I have no business.
It's pretty nice to go out there, and yet we need to have some business. Yes,
you need to have some business. And yet in hindsight, it was actually the very best time that I could have started a business. Because I needed to learn to build relationships and not look for easy opportunity. Anybody can start a business in a boom. Anybody can say yes to opportunity that comes and knocks on your door. So how do you build relationship? And in the work that we do, we're those trusted confidants and advisors that support the growth of others. That comes through building relationship and giving into community. And so that's what I did. And I continued to look for ways to contribute, but also to just be genuinely curious about others. That led to my first real opportunity as a coach. And I had a coffee with one person that I hardly knew. And they suggested I talk to Rick. And then a couple of days later, I had a conversation with someone else I hardly knew or I just met. And they said, you should talk to Rick. And Rick was the leader for a career transition program for leaders and senior professionals that had been out of work for a year or more. And they were looking for they weren't looking for someone rather, but these two people thought it would be a helpful person to meet with. And I went to meet with Rick. And he says, well, if these two people say I need to meet with you, then I need to meet with you. And by the way, we're not hiring. That's okay. I'm just here to learn more and see, you know, where I fit into the world, or learn about what kinds of work you're doing and see where it takes me. And at the end of our conversation, he asked me to consult with their program for 5 days a week. And I said, no, you can have 2 days a week. Because here's what I really want to do. And this will help me get there. But if I do it 5 days a week, I'll never get to where I want to go. So that gave me a great gift of stability, and to, again, quiet those internal voices, to have that regular contract for 10 months while I built the rest of my practice. And then over those 10 months, I took my other 2 days a week that I wanted to work, and I built my practice and filled those 2 days a week. And I gave my 5th day to my daughter, who was, I just had my daughter before starting my business. She was 6 months to a year old. And I've
Wow.
always reserved my Fridays for my personal day and now my admin day and my family. And little by little, by continuing to talk to people and focus on just creating great value, being genuinely curious about the other person, the conversation after conversation.
Yeah.
That's what grew my business over those 3 to 5 years. Really, the hardest part was the first 2 years.
Yeah. And usually that's the time it takes for someone to actually give up, right? Because stats say that, you know, within the first 1 to 3 years, that's when most businesses fail. And yes, as coaches, we don't want to kind of just focus on the fail part, but that's also meaning that we've got to do certain right things. One of those things I heard you say was you knew what you wanted. How important is that? Expand on that just a little bit.
Well, I'd already been through one career where I was doing what everybody else said that I should do. And I found textbook success and opportunity. And yet I felt unfulfilled and stuck. So although in that first opportunity, I would get lots of work.
Yeah.
It was work that would help me learn a lot more as a new coach. And that was important.
Yeah.
But not to get pulled in so much that I abandoned what I wanted and also knowing that it was only 10 months left in the program that was funded by the federal government to help bring the people through the recession. That I could see the consultant trap of dedicating all my time there, but also looking at, well, what am I building for me? And am I really willing to put that on hold?
Yeah.
And that no wasn't an easy no to say. I like to tell people that you're being brave when you vomit in your mouth a little bit.
I like that so much.
And it was just true. It's not easy. It's really hard. And then it's like stepping over the cliff. It's like, here we go. Oh, did I just say that? Did I really just say no? Okay. Yeah, I did. And I feel okay about it. And it's scary. And it's what I want. And at the same time, the alarm bells are ringing. And just even just talking about it brings up some of that emotion again.
Nothing anymore on the throat, I'm sure.
No. All clear.
That is so fabulous. And within the last 11 years and or so, right? I'm sure you've gotten so much learning and insights about your journey. I'm gonna ask you kind of distill it and give us that top 3, right? What would that be for you? That insights that you want to share on this show today?
I think, one of them we've talked about already. I like to distill as build good karma. And it's the idea of giver's gain and without expectation to give into your community and to mentor others or to serve others and help others. And the amount that I've given into the community has been great, but I've received 100 times more than I have ever given. And not necessarily from the same places I have given, but I truly believe that building good karma and contributing without expectation, we get 100 times more when we give without expectation.
Yeah, that's so good.
The next one is to be brave. As we were just talking about, staying brave and continuing to build that capacity within yourself of not waiting for things to get more comfortable, but accepting that they will be uncomfortable and building skills so that you can step into discomfort again and again and again and know that you'll be okay. Because that happens in coaching. We step into conversations and we don't know what's going to happen throughout the conversation. And knowing that you'll be okay and staying brave through your life as a coach or staying brave through a conversation, it creates growth and opportunity for everyone. And a third one, I struggled on distilling these down, and I think it's doing really, really good work focusing on doing great work. And I don't mean being perfect, but I do mean focusing on being the very best that you can possibly be. I invest a great deal in my own professional development each year.
Yes. Yeah.
But I also focus a great deal on understanding my business and the structures that are needed to support me and the other coaches that work with our clients in doing great work. So exploring the idea of what does it mean to do really great work, not perfect work, but great work, and staying committed to doing that.
Wow. So many great thoughts there. I'm just so tempted to ask you more about the brave, right? Because that's a key word in my life as well. I have these 3 words: live, be brave. And when you work with your clients, and imagine if you've got a client that is perhaps not so brave because maybe he or she has gone through certain scenarios in life that was pretty tough. What would happen next if they worked with Jenn?
I believe that when I show up with courage, I invite my client to show up with courage. I make it safe for them to show up with courage.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of a CFO I worked with that there was a day that I shared with her some difficult feedback. And it was feedback that I decided, tabled with her and asked permission to share with her, although we had already agreed that we would leave it till our next session.
Yeah.
But I felt compelled to raise it because the topic we were coaching on was directly related to the feedback that was going to be presented the next week, and that the steps she was going to take could demonstrate to her stakeholders that she did not care about this feedback that had recently been collected. They don't know when she's received it.
Yeah.
And so I asked for permission, and it hit her really hard.
Wow.
And she started to cry. And she stormed out of my office. And I didn't know what to do. And I went out and I talked to a few colleagues. And I went through some of my own soul searching, and I decided to leave it to the client to call when they were ready.
Yeah.
And she did call 3 or 4 days later, and it was an excruciatingly long time.
Yeah.
And she asked me to apologize and promised that I would never do it again. And I didn't know this was coming. And I said, I can't, because I need you to know that I would do it again because it was in service of you.
Wow.
And if I had held back, it would be in service of me. And I need to be able to take risks in our relationship. And I'm here to clean it up. And I'm sorry it hurt. I can't tell you that I wouldn't do it again. And that was a turning point in our relationship, because this was a pattern of behavior that she was taking on and pushing others away in her work. And I was the first person to step into a relationship with courage with her and make it okay for her to stay and work it through with me.
Yeah. Wow. It kind of tells me that you were meant to be there and ask her that tough question in service, as you say, of her. It reminds me of what I was talking about with some coaches in training. I say, trust the process, but surrender to not knowing. And just like you, Jenn, you didn't know when she was coming back. You didn't know what she was going to say. And even after what she said, you trusted the process, and it's okay. You didn't have to know everything on how she exactly felt, or if she wanted to terminate and said, I had enough.
I remember she said, so what do we do now?
Oh, wow.
And I remember saying to her, I don't know. I've not been here before.
That is amazing. Jenn, I'm going to ask you about how situation like that you just mentioned with a leader that has been in a certain state and still allowed to be there in the organization. The culture kind of accepts the state of the leader And yes, they're going through coaching, but there is no guarantees that this will be solved, right? Well, what happens in situations like that? Because on one side, the company still wants the best for the leader, but there are no guarantees, right?
Two things happen.
Mm.
One, the organization is willing to grow alongside that leader as they grow.
Yeah,
and they're able to move forward and move on. And the other is the leader grows and the organization isn't willing to grow with them. And they move on. In either case is success. In the first scenario, if the organization and the leader are able to grow together, they're able to find together a next level, whatever that means for them. If not, then the organization is able to grow and move on to its next level, and that leader is able to grow and develop in a way that they can move on to a next opportunity and not repeat this pattern somewhere else and stay stuck. So they too get to move on into what's next, and everyone wins no matter which way it goes. So when we look at those situations where there's coaching to resolve a challenge in the relationship with a leader, it's never for naught. But there's benefit that comes no matter if the leader ends up staying with the organization or not. Everyone gets unstuck.
So good. Yeah. And you know, I realized there are companies that are open to coaching, and there are companies that are just new to coaching, right? They're coming to understand what it is. What would you say or share with these organizations that are coming into coaching and they're like, I don't know whether this coaching thing works? Do you have ROIs with that? You know, I'm sure you've heard that before, right? So yeah, what would you do in situations like that, Jenn?
I ask them what they want to be different a year from now. And if what they're doing is working for them to get them there, then maybe they don't need coaching. If they don't know the path forward and they want to try something different to get to the dramatically different results they want to have in their future, then I can't guarantee ROI and I can't measure this whole thing. But I know that through our process that we can get to results. But also that if you're looking to measure every step of the way on that ROI, it's like measuring ROI on a painting that has never existed before. And there are ways to see the change. But how do we measure growth in children? Sure, I can measure them up against the wall and I can do the next pencil mark against the wall. But is that really all the growth and development? Does it tell the story of their personality and their humor and their maturity and all those things that I enjoy about being with them that it has developed over time? It does not. And the same is true for development. Working with a coach and a leader together in a pairing is about developing the human being, and there's follow ROI for the business, but it starts with not the pencil marks on the wall, but growing and developing the person to help them create greater opportunity and potential by becoming their very best.
Both of us here really believe that coaching works because we've not just seen that happen as an effect with organizations, but it's helped us grow as a person too. I have 3 children and I can tell you, coaching has helped me tremendously understand what I can do and what I shouldn't do. Tell us a little bit of a personal one here where coaching kind of helped you along the way with your daughter.
Oh boy, doesn't always help me figure out what I shouldn't do. Helps me clean up and reflect on the things where I have misstepped and to look for the learning in it and to go back and clean up and to move out of self-judgment and look at how do I go and repair and make amends, because I think we're all blowing it as parents from time to time, me included. And we talked about trusting the process. I mean, coaching has taught me a lot about trusting the process as a parent, and that part of this journey is not about me teaching my daughter, but about being open to my own growth as a person through this process of being a parent.
And there are times I think the other ones that is showing me how I can be. I often say they are my best coaches in my life. So there, let's put it out there. Hooray for children.
Yeah, my daughter holds me to who I aspire to be. She doesn't know it. She just naturally just does.
Yeah, so beautiful. Jenn, there's so much talk about the future of coaching, right? It's like, oh, there's AI and all of this. They're going to replace all of us. What's your take on the future?
There's going to be a demand for more coaching and more one-to-one coaching experiences. The more that we move into an AI world and a technology-focused world, the more we're going to crave having that partner by our side, and that real human connection, and having that support system around us, and not just a coach, but mentorship is going to become more important than ever. Building a few close friendships to have as part of your support team, and some colleagues you can rely on, are going to become more and more important, because the world is becoming lonelier and lonelier with so much time spent through social media and quick exchanges with one another, and not having spaces to really be with our thoughts and to be in connection with someone else and to grow and develop. So I think that's where the trend is going to go. And I think that people are going to want more and more face-to-face, whether it's Zoom or in person, and less on phone, because there's just less and less human connection in their lives, and that spending time looking into the eyes of someone else creates something in us that can't be replicated any other way.
Yeah, so true. That's why I'm also doing this, because I crave the connection with my kind, right? My tribe. So beautiful. You know, there are new coaches walking in to our industry every single day. What will be that wisdom that you want to share with them?
I think there's two thoughts that I would like to share, and one is, that we haven't talked about already, and one is I talked about doing really great work, but that doesn't mean that you do your clients' work. And I talk a lot with newer coaches about being the lazy coach. If you are working too hard and you're sweating it out, you're trying to figure out what to do next. You need to lean back a little bit and make a little bit more room for your client, and be a little bit more the lazy coach, and let them do the work, because that's where their insights are going to come from. So to notice how much you're rolling up your sleeves and you're owning the conversation and doing the work. And if you're leading and you're owning it more than your client, make some room for them, because that's where their growth will come. And we get so hung up on creating value. The process and you being there, the value just comes. If you go hard at it, you get in the way of it. And the other one is letting go of perfect. When I started coaching, everybody was trying to find their niche. And over the years, I've seen so many coaches delay getting started with coaching until they figured out their niche, and they couldn't launch a website until they had their niche, and they had to do all this work to figure out the perfect niche. And I don't believe that that's how a niche comes about. You're already close to your niche, whatever your inkling is. And I believe in a concept I call niche for now. Go coach people. What you think might be your niche. Your niche for now. And as you go and you work with clients, you'll learn more about yourself as a coach and more about your clients, and it'll evolve. But it doesn't evolve on the sidelines. It only evolves when you start working with clients. It took me 10 years to figure out my niche. 10 years. I wouldn't have coached for 10 years if I looked for the perfect niche.
Yeah.
I received lots of feedback that my niche for leadership was too broad. And no, you'll never make it as a coach if you have a niche of leadership. Seems to have worked for me. But what I didn't know is that my niche was the mindset of leadership. And it was always my niche. I just didn't have the words for it.
Yeah.
It took me 10 years to figure that out, but it actually was always my niche.
Yeah.
And I seem to have a good coaching practice and do really great work with clients without having those specific words.
That's so helpful. Start there.
Yeah.
Start now.
Yeah, just start. Just start. You figure it out. You learn something by starting. You don't learn something on the sidelines trying to analyze your way through it.
Yeah. So good. Wow. We always ask this question as a closer. Jenn, get ready. What is your powerful question that you'd like to leave to the audience today?
Consider who you're becoming 10 years from now. Who are you becoming 10 years from today?
So good.
I'd speak to that, and I didn't hold a big enough vision for myself. And whatever you aspire for your 10-year vision of who you're becoming, times it by 10.
And right now, Jenn, this is where we want the audience to kind of connect with you. So share with us some of your handles, how we can get to know and connect with Jenn.
You can connect with me on my website, incito.ca, and also on LinkedIn, Jenn Lofgren, and on Facebook, Jenn Lofgren MCC.
There you have it. This has been the 100 Master Coaches here today with Jenn and myself. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.
You have been watching the 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Brought to you by Catalyst Coach. www.catalystcoach.live. We will be right back with our next Master Coach on the 100 Master Coaches series.